Steady?
Pretty
All right,
good.
guys,
Close.
we're gonna tighten it up and get rolling now that we got a quorum. So Thursday, September 27th, a little after 10:30, Capital Program Committee, no members of the public for comment. So this is our call to order. Roll call, President Richard Hussey, Nat Lowell, Peter Kaiser, and myself, Stephen Welch. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Okay, that carries unanimously, no dissent, no public comment. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of August 16th, please?
So moved. Second.
Okay, that carries unanimously, no dissent, and a motion to hold the 6th, 13th. Terry, did I send you the 6th? I'm sorry, bear with me a second, guys.
I think I haven't gotten anything on that, so.
Okay, so,
You said it was okay, but
okay, thanks, so I'll double check that. So a motion to hold the September 6th, 13th, and 20th minutes?
So moved.
Okay, that carries unanimously, no dissent. We're gonna be, we have the school, Nantucket Public Schools here for their FY20 requests and out years. We're gonna do the FY20 requests, then the out years, have discussion amongst ourselves. Rebecca, is Brian coming?
Yes,
And-
he should be here anytime.
Okay, that's great, and we'll have some discussion with Finance Department as necessary. And with that, we'd like to welcome you this morning and give you the floor.
Thank you. As is customary for this, I'm going to let Diane lead off with the with the projects. She's prepared information for you, so I'm sure that you've looked at that. And then I'm going to interject, and if questions pertain to finances, Martin's here, prepared to speak to any questions that you may have there.
Excellent.
That's all
See,
right.
how do you want me to do this? Do you want to go through each one? We already did this with Richard and Peter. I don't know if you want me to review them.
Yeah, I think I would just go top to bottom, and then that way we'll,
Sure.
if there's any questions that come up, we'll have a chance to.
So NPS building improvements, we started lumping everything together a few years back, all the schools, just because it makes it easier when we're funding projects. So what I did, I went around campus and took some photographs of things that I would like to get done in the next year. The first thing would be the NES gym roof. And we actually, that one kind of came off the table because we had to investigate it right away, and it turned out to be an HVAC unit that was up on the roof. Some of the condensation and some of the seals had let go, so that's been replaced. So we can take that one off the table. The next photograph is pictures of the flooring in the cluster spaces. As you can see, it's bubbled. It's from moisture coming up through the slab. We addressed this in a couple of the classrooms over there as a test a couple of years ago. We asked Alan Carpet to come in, he removed the tiles. He did an epoxy finish on 3 classroom floors, and it seems to be working out really well, so I'd like to move forward with that if this request is approved. That would be one of my things to get done. There's 2 pages of that, and then there's just some residual tiling work that needs to be done at NES, just here and there things. I tried to price things out based on today's prices as we do get things done. Connecting corridor floor and the front door has kind of that grass mat, and it's a brush sort of. It's all stained, it's worn out, it's not a good look when you walk into the elementary school, either the front or the back door. I'd like to replace that with something, probably a black mat. When we talked to Richard and Peter had some suggestions that they use down at the yacht club, so I will definitely follow up with them.
Something for heavy traffic.
Yeah, something for heavy traffic.
Yep.
And then we move on to classroom cabinets. Now this is a big one, and this will need to be done over several years. A lot of these cabinets, well, all the cabinets are original to the building, which was built originally in '78 and then added on to, I think, in '88. They're tiny. This isn't something I can buy from Home Depot or IKEA and replace them. They all have to be custom done. We have looked high and low for something we could buy off the shelf that would be less expensive, but because we have little people, we really have to have them at that countertop height. So that's going to be a project, and as you can see, there are literally some classrooms that are falling apart as you go through the next 4 pages. So again, that will be a multi-year thing. NES shingles, and then we go on to NHS and shingles. We redid CPS a couple of years ago. We redid the entire outside. We had it painted and shingles replaced, so CPS is in great shape. The high school has areas that we should address. Shingles are falling off, definitely south side of the building. Takes more abuse than,
Sun.
yeah, it's the sun that really beats them up. So I'd like to do that. I'd also like to, the NHS windows, all of the trim is original, and it's faded and it's off and it doesn't look very well. I'm not saying it's a structural problem, it just, we painted CPS and I'd like to go and paint. We've done all the trim on NHS, but we didn't do any of the windows.
Are those wood?
No,
Wood
they're
frames?
metal.
Metal.
So it's a tough, it's a
Different
time
process.
consuming project.
Right.
The
Diane,
next-
how is the,
sorry.
sorry, just to, how is that aluminum holding up just in general? I was just kind of curious. It's been
It's-
there a while.
It's been great.
Yeah.
I mean,
No
knock on
issues.
wood, minimal issues. We've replaced windows behind the main staircase, the entire bank of windows behind the main staircase in the high school.
Right.
And all of the windows in the hall of the whale, because we had severe leaks. We replaced the actual glass, which is better for heating and cooling, and it completely stopped all the leaks. So those were really the two places that we were having some damage. We also, a few years back, did some shingling and window replacement on the outside deck of the pool, of the mezzanine of the pool. There was severe leaks in there. So what we've rectified as we've gone through, but as far as like the classroom windows and things like that, this is more like roof and probably from the sun. We've tried to repair what we thought would be best. So we did that in a window project. If you look back, you'll see our window projects. But these classroom windows have been really okay. We really haven't had a lot of issues. I have an issue right now. There's I call it a greenhouse. It's in the vocational wing. It's on the second floor of the academic wing of the high school. So it looks like a little greenhouse, and there's leaks in there. There's issues. I had Hans up there this summer trying to find where it was coming from. We can't remove it because it's structural, how it comes out of the building, the metal frame. It would take an engineer to figure out how to even do away with it, because I thought, well, we'll just, put
Right.
a roof in instead of this curved window, but we're looking into that as well.
Okay.
Hans is trying to figure it out for us, so to speak.
It's architecture in the past, essentially, we're dealing with now. This
Exactly.
is what they
Yep.
did,
You're absolutely right.
1989.
The front apron of the high school, we had some tripping issues last winter. As you can see, the concrete is in a little bit rough shape. I replaced some of the squares this summer. We did what we could, and we will continue on with that process. As you can see, it's kind of worn out. And that just comes from the salt and its wear, and we go on with concrete issues, and then these issues are in the back of the building. So kind of off the vocational wing, and the last 3 pages are photographs of the sidewalks back there that need serious help. I mean, there's some tripping issues back there, and
That's the Sparks side.
yeah, that's the Sparks Avenue side. So that's building projects, and please know we can't possibly get all of this done with the 300,000, especially the cabinets in the elementary school, but we will continue on in the years to come trying to address all of those replacements. Any questions on that?
So this is kind of like a living guide of what you want to do going forward. Some stuff gets added to it every year.
Yes.
Stuff you get done falls off of it.
Yes.
Gotcha. It's a nice system.
Thank you. My next request is the third and final phase of the Bacchus Lane playing fields and field improvements. So our pricing came from the architect, as you know from last year. And this is a final request. I did speak with, just so everybody knows where the land is at this point, it's still in land court. They hired Arthur Reed to do the title search. One of the abutters has given their assent and they're waiting for the second one. And then he'll file his report with Valerie Sweat, who is the attorney for the land bank, who actually owns the land. And once that is all done, they can turn that property over to us so we can build playgrounds, move the varsity baseball over there, and
So that's, just if I can interject, we started on this 4 years ago.
we did.
Before the building was built. And I'll be honest, it's been very frustrating to have it take so long. But it's a process,
Yeah.
and it involves legislative, approval and town approval, and it's just, there are a lot of layers, and it's been hung up. So we will get there, but this sort of plays into the whole athletic complex discussion, because moving that baseball field over here, getting it off of where it is now, where you have to stand in the street to watch games in behind the school and foul balls go into the building. It'll be a good step one.
Oh, anything with land court is slow, and I'm just glad that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the time because it's going to take time, but this is good.
We're moving.
Yeah.
We are moving in the right direction. It's just, we spent a lot of time on it. Is there any questions on that?
No, I have none. You guys? I want to back up. I was just thinking, with respect to the building and grounds improvements. Rebecca, if you can make a note, some of the school titles in the summary worksheet don't track on the planet. So if we change those for consistency, and then the land acquisition has a coding for FY24, which I think might be a typo. And Diane, to you, I wanted to ask your capital projects. What are you? Oh, and Rebecca, the out years for the building and grounds improvement. There are no entries in the summary worksheet. Just while this is all topical.
Really?
In the planet there is, but we have a separate worksheet that we use for tracking internally.
Okay.
Planet needs a lot of work. There's a lot of stuff that was added like several cycles ago.
Sure.
So things need to sort of be updated, and that is on my running list of, I'm gonna try to go through it.
Sure, and this is just to make sure it's on a
No,
list
yeah,
somewhere, that's all.
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
not it's just noticing it and making comments so we can track and pick it up. Yeah,
She should probably use the mic.
okay. I'll try not to ask you questions. So you don't have to keep getting up. Diane, this all started, the question I wanted to ask is, what is your process with respect to bidding out capital projects? I'm just kind of curious how that works for you guys versus how it works for other town departments, which I'm familiar with.
It's the same. We go through a procurement process. Sometimes, so I'll give you an example. The library, when we redid the library this year, we went out to bid 3 times for the library project. The first time the all-in bid, which was everyone's wish list, came in at $980,000. We had budgeted approximately $225 for the project. We also had some flexibility in our capital request that we could have gone over a little bit, or we could have, the second time we went out, we had taken out, there was a maker space we took out, and we took out the electrical. Because I had contacted National Grid and asked if they could change the lighting for us under their energy incentive program, which is exempt from procurement. 25A, I think, section 14.
I'll take your word on it.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. That's right off the top of my head. Anyway, it's exempt. I contacted National Grid. They came and changed all the lights for us. And just to give you an example of the savings, the lighting and all of the electrical work, which really wasn't a lot of electrical work, the first time we bid it, the filed sub bid came in at $177,000. We've changed all the lights through the National Grid incentive program for 23,000 something, some change. We have 6 lights in the hard ceiling that didn't get changed, and we have 2 hanging pendants that didn't get put in. We'll address that later, but that's a huge difference. And we were able to use, Martin has a sort of a revolver for us because we do a lot of energy incentive programs. We've gotten rebate checks and we put them aside for these projects. So we were able to use that funding for all the lighting in the library. Third time we went out, we did painting. I bid out painting and flooring separately. And then all of the furniture we bought from either the state bid list or I did a quote for, we got 3 quotes for there's some kiosks and the circulation desk. So we absolutely follow procurement law for really all of this. If there's sort of something in place, like something's on state contract, we'll definitely go to that. I also use the Massachusetts Higher Education Consortium because they've already done the procurement for the state and that's approved by the state of Massachusetts. So a lot of their things are on, have already been bid out and the contracts are in place. And then if it's really construction, we definitely write a bid.
I know you have a little bit of experience in this area. I was just so, but do you do it all? Do you do it internally? So your procurement process, you follow procurement laws, but you do it internally at the school?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I have a full picture.
A lot of times, based on the architect's plan, if we've hired an architect, like we did for the library, I'm going to have to take their bid specs, and then I front load our rules, which is, you know, everyone probably uses the same rules, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, just for context, we kind of forget over the years who does what and how it gets done. Thank you.
And then either I or my assistant Michelle will write the contract, get it to the vendor, make sure we have all the OSHA, make sure we have all the, you know, the bond, everything in place before we allow them on site to do the work.
That's good. So it's helpful to know. Okay, so back to, we were headed to
Handheld radios?
handheld radios.
Okay, so since our campus has expanded so much, we're finding it more and more difficult to hear on our handheld radios. So if I'm in the central office and I'm trying to call the elementary school, it's crackle. I can't reach Bacchus Lane. So if somebody's on the field over there, they can't call me.
So let me give you a couple of examples of how we use the handheld radios. A teacher or teacher assistant might go out to recess. So they want a handheld radio so that they can get in touch with the school nurse if there's a kid that gets hurt out on the playground. If they're trying to reach Diane, any of the schools are trying to reach Diane, she has. So generally, all of the principals, assistant principals,
special
all
needs,
needs,
have radios. Custodians have radios.
Yeah.
Security has radio.
And I don't know when that was last done. It certainly preceded me.
You mean a new system?
New
system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the system we're proposing, I got in touch with Charlie Gibson, and this is actually part of their current system. So he would program our radios to have our own frequency so that we come off. So literally, I could be calling someone in Sconset and they'd be able to hear me because he uses the exact same radios that the police use. He told me that DBW has switched over, airport has switched to this, and they all have their own frequency within the public safety facility. The reason that I asked for 200,000 and not 100 radios times 2,088, 87 is because I'm probably not going to buy a 3-year service contract for a battery, which is $90. So I took it back to about $2,000 a radio. I think we're going to have something in place if and when we get these, so that people have to sign for them and are responsible for them. Because right now we don't have that in place. We just hand out radios to
2,000
principal said.
radio.
Yeah, I was
200. 2,000 radio.
for
Yeah.
200,000.
It's like,
So
oh,
200,000, because
yeah.
I'm asking for
100
100 radios
radios, yeah.
for a campus-wide
Yeah.
replacement. He did tell me that most of town departments have switched over already to the system, and it works great, but, so that's the direction we went.
Okay.
Because it is a safety issue.
Well, it makes, and you have to have this. I mean, this
Becomes
is,
difficult. Sometimes I'm calling, a lot of times I'll call their cell phone,
Right.
because I can't hear
Right.
on the radio.
yeah.
Okay. Peter?
Is it possible with these to switch over to a frequency of a different department? Like if you wanted to radio somebody in the police
I have
department
I
for
have-
emergency purposes or whoever it might be?
It's only-
That's a really
Really
good
good
question.
From
I have to
any
ask
individual
Charlie about
radio?
that.
Yeah.
I mean,
He could program
police or
them.
fire, if there's an issue, I mean, instead of picking up your phone and calling 911, if you could switch a
Exactly.
dial
to
and be on the
3 or
police
4 or
frequency,
Something,
Yeah.
right?
you know?
It's a great question.
I mean, they probably already know. I'm sure other departments would
On my
have
list.
the
My
ability
idea.
to.
It's my question. I
But-
didn't think of that.
I think that maybe they would say they don't want us listening to their.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe it goes one way. Maybe you know.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe
I
it
mean,
only
that's
goes.
what I would
Th-
think they would
these-
say.
Maybe it goes straight to
It is.
dis-
I'm definitely going to ask the
Yeah,
question.
or straight to dispatch or something like that.
Right,
You know,
right.
just to cut out having to pull out a phone or
Yeah,
find a
these
phone.
units are pretty, we're the police liaison and we did the dispatch system
A couple years ago,
a
right?
couple years
Yeah.
ago. So I got in tune with, pretty in tune with the equipment, but there probably is some capability that you'll be able to have like a administrator level access
Right.
where you would be able to, for emergency service, God forbid something's necessary, certain radios would have access on a certain channel, but maybe it would be a one-way versus a two-way as you'd suggested, but certainly worth checking out for this kind of money.
Absolutely.
And then I guess the other thing I wanted to mention, Diane, I appreciate you mentioned the asset control. I'd suggest talk with the Motorola service provider. They are probably going to have a software system solution for you that will not only be able to track the radios and the serial numbers by their unique identifier serial number, but it may actually be able to ping and locate. They're probably going to
No different than the locator for a phone
Right.
or
Yeah.
for
These are
computers.
Yeah, these are
These
very
days.
sophisticated pieces of equipment. So for $2,000 a whack, if you can
agree.
track it, it would be really helpful. And that might be something that you can negotiate and they'll throw in on the deal. I don't know. I just mentioned it. And then the other thing I wanted to ask while we were talking about it is, what are you anticipating the useful life of these units are?
So that's a good question, and I did ask, and I was told pretty much forever. I don't know if you know the
Nothing's
story about, I know,
Yeah.
but they found a radio that had a police radio. This is a great story. They found one of these in a bag that had sunk to the bottom of the Marine Department, had been down there for like 2 years. They pull it up and they charged it and it worked.
So they're durable,
Yeah.
right?
So send them a link to the asset control when you get that.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I said, you're kidding.
Wow.
They were like, no.
You just wonder if
I
they're.
mean, that's a good story, but
It is, I
I'm
know.
thinking of dollars and cents.
Emergency.
and are you thinking more for like typical everyday use? How many you get 5 or 10 years out of it? Is that
Yeah,
what
I
you're
mean,
asking?
it sounds
more
like
so?
it's,
I mean,
I'll ask
the,
Charlie
it's
that.
What
10
the
years on
replacement-
the anticipated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 10 year. Okay.
so it's $200. I mean, it's less than $20 a month
Right.
for
$200 a
that
year.
type of
I understand that
communication.
these are very expensive. I'm
Yeah.
a little, I have to be honest, a little nervous about like.
Giving them all out to
Giving them
people,
up.
right?
Yeah, I was
To
just
get
gonna
lost.
say,
Yes.
is each one you have for inventory, the 200 you wanna get, is the,
100.
no, 100, excuse me, is there 100 people?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, there
There's
is.
probably more than that now.
So
I'm
they're gonna
probably
have their own
cutting this-
radio, they're just gonna put it in a rack at the end of the night and grab?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just asking, I'm just curious if there's, like
Like
this
mine
is,
sits on my desk, and when I leave,
You know.
I'll pick it up and go wherever I'm
So-
going.
then a follow-up to my, Steve's question, I think, for me would be, not so much the shelf life, but for like, how long can you order like those Scott pack things, you know what I mean? Like they just get them, like, cause they have to have them. I kinda look at this as sort of like that, but are they gonna be a different kind then? That, or are they gonna be able to program into the ones that you have, you know, can you buy 50 in 5 years? I'm just
Talking
saying.
about planned obsolescence.
Right.
Yeah.
Do they switch over to a new software that you can't use these
Yeah,
with?
they already have
So often.
3 new iPhone 10s. Just came out. It's like
You can still
I
call
just
an old
got
iPhone
this
with it.
new one. No, I know that. That's why I'm kind of saying it. You just stole my next thing. Is that you can still use an old phone with a new phone.
Right.
Does this work like that? Not just a fast.
In 10 years,
That's all.
these will be Windows 8 versus Windows 20.
X.
But from what we understood working with the police department, they're backward compatible to a certain extent, and then they stop to support them. But it's typically at the end of their manufacturer advertised useful
So
life.
like 10 years.
So if it's 10 years
Yeah.
in the brochure, it's typically a window of support before they stop supporting it at 10 years.
Don't
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, don't buy 58 years from now. If you have
Yeah.
to replace all of them.
Yeah,
anyways.
yeah. Look at the
Right.
model number and when the next iteration. And that actually brings up a good point, is just to suggest that look at what iteration this is and just ask Motorola, what's, the service rep through Charlie or directly, when's the next model coming out? If it's next year,
Well, wait.
maybe, not if it's like a complete
Smart.
redo of the chassis and everything, because then you don't know it's reliable, but it's just a thought. It's a big investment, and we want it to be successful for you guys if it goes forward. The other thing I wanted to mention is just in terms of the utility, I don't know how you all 100 congregate in the facility, which is to say, like, so that's one point, and the other, which I'll circle back to, and the other is in terms of asset control. So if you have the janitorial staff, is that the right term? Okay, just making sure I got the right term
Custodial,
there.
whatever.
Custodial. So you've got the custodial staff or the ground staff, and maybe they, instead of having a desktop charger at home, there's a rack
Bank.
that's in the facility in their area where the administrator is, or
They
no?
don't take them home.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking?
Well, no, what I'm suggesting is I see that it's listed as a desktop single unit charger, but you may find utility in pricing at a more expensive price, having the rack units where you come in to, custodial comes in or grounds comes in and they have 10 radios and there's two 5-set racks, boom, boom, boom. It's easier for the manager or whoever the superintendent of that department is to track it, because every day they see the rate, everyone's clocked out and there's radios missing. So it also helps to build in a little bit of accountability by structuring the environment. And it also makes it more convenient because all the radios are in one place. So just mention it.
And they could go probably near the time clock or something. If you're punching
Yeah.
out, you're putting your radio away.
And I also mention it because
It's just
it's going to be more expensive a little bit, but if you build it into your costing, that would be helpful. Any other thought? Well, we got a lot of comments on the radios this morning.
I mean, I was gonna say that I was gonna ask something similar to that, whether or not they're congregated at the end of the day, or if they're just everyone gets one at the beginning of the year with a serial number, and they're just expected to hold on to it till the end of the the end of the school year, and then return them. Or so it sounds like they're all
Custodians work full-
year round, yeah, or
so
year round,
Yeah.
right. But if they
They're
all
on
get
their cart.
Right.
So
Okay.
yes, they put them in their charger at the end of the night, and
Yeah.
then they put it, when they're given their instructions, when they come in, like the 2 o'clock team, they get their radio at that time.
Yeah. And they can still be tagged, right? So that they're an individual's assigned a particular radio by serial number, but they still can put them in the same charger and just
Yes.
have a label on it. So it's in fact, you probably want to do metal tape labeling anyways, which is
Well, they
for
sort of
asset
share.
control.
So my day team uses radios, and then I'll give you an example in Chip's office. He has all the chargers, and then the day team just puts them there, and then the night team comes in and they sort of grab them. And
so they're already doing it in a
So
single
they're being shared. They're-
place.
they're-
So you'll wrestle with that, Bear, in terms of
policy.
sharing and who's going to be responsible. We'll leave that to you as long as it's taken care of it and we don't find it at the bottom of the
Harbor.
at the harbor.
I thought that was a great story to share.
It is a great story. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, guys, on those?
Okay, the next request is this year
Gotta do
for
this.
250,000, and then each year after 750,000 to get our athletic complex and our master plan complete. So the master plan, Mr. Kozer and I talk about this a lot, and Martin.
What page is this
We
on?
talk about,
This is the first one.
Yeah, it's up at the front.
Okay.
we talk about, we really need a master plan, and part of the master plan is moving the baseball field, but another part of the master plan is we know we're gonna need another school someday.
That land.
So,
Yeah.
we need to figure out probably now and plan for the future. So right now, this is our campus. we may lose this field to a school, but we need to get a design team helping us through this master plan process. So the initial request is for $250,000 to talk about and hire that design team to move us into the future.
Do they bid for that? Do they bid for the
Absolutely.
design?
I'll do an RFP for a design team and put the whole description in, and then how the RFP process works. We have to have a committee, we have to interview, and then we are not allowed to open price until we define who is the most advantageous firm, and then we open price. And
If I can interject, about 5 yees ago, might be 6, we developed a plan for the athletic complex. We shelved it when the need for classroom space, it was really kind of hard to go forward with an athletic complex when you've got 750 kids in a school built for 450. So we put it aside and moved into the building project. But I do think, if nothing else, that planning needs to move forward, and as Diane said, it really needs to take into consideration the future building needs. Our enrollment continues to go up every year. That's not happening on the mainland. And I would like to have thought that the intermediate school and the addition to the middle school would give us, 15, 20 years. It won't if our enrollment continues. Now, at some point, I think there will be a dip. But if you look at our enrollment, every time there's been a dip, it's come back stronger by far. So if you look at the 25 years, you'll see every 10 years there's sort of a dip of 100, and then we come back by 300. So right now, that high school is full. It's full. And my suggestion to whoever will be sitting in this seat is to look at one of two things, and Nat and I have talked about this before. You're either going to, it doesn't make sense to build a new high school. That's the most expensive dollars.
I like your idea.
So
It's
I
still
would,
the same one.
I would say you either build a new middle school and make the present middle high school into your high school, or maybe, and I don't know if this buys you enough time, you turn the vocational wing into academic space and build a new vocational building. I just don't know that that gives you a 15 or 20 year, cushion. But those are the things that you're gonna have to look at. And so if you have to build a new school someday and you want to keep the complex here and not build a school 3 miles from here, which is, you could do, then you're going to need to look at using probably one of the field spaces.
And just so everyone's on the same page, since this plan was developed, we've talked an awful lot internally about where things should go and how things should sit. And actually, the new plan is where the football field is now. We went to Sandwich High School, and they actually, and this all came out of a conversation about elevators and how could you have a announcer's booth without an elevator. They built their brand new synthetic field into the hill, and then they took the handicap access ramp and went around up the hill into the back of it. It's beautiful. So I got in touch with Sandwich High School and got their architect and their plans and all of that. I haven't moved forward because we haven't moved forward, but at least it would take this away from this space. So if like Mr. Poser said, if we decided to use the vocational wing, maybe we could build the vocational wing up here. I don't know, but all this needs to be discussed and vetted out, and that's what this initial money is for.
You guys thoughts, questions,
Yeah.
comments?
Just have a quick, just recap from before. I thought we were taking the current baseball field, you know, with the oil tanks, that field, and making that the new middle school, and moving the baseball to what we just talked about 20 minutes ago,
The baseball will go over to Beckett's Lane
regardless.
regardless.
Yes.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
which I know is there, but you're throwing a football field.
Well, I
Where
don't
the-
know that that's where we'll put
yeah,
the football
I thought the
field.
football field was
That's
staying
an
where it is.
old,
That was last year's.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
Yeah, it
That's
was
an
last
old
year's.
That's what I meant, we took
Yeah.
this away and moved it back down.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So that leaves that space empty. We still need, field hockey and,
Right.
and all of that, and maybe that's,
Lacrosse.
and we have to talk about all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, the thing is too is, okay, so after school, kids go, you know, change for sports. Can't have them walking forever to get somewhere. It's complicated, but I think that I still agree with the campus thing, flip-flopping dirt around is the answer. It's just figuring out how to utilize it the last time. Not saying, I don't think we should do anything temporary. I think it should all be permanent now, after what you've done, you know, recently.
I mean, I think right now you've got what's the equivalent of a college campus.
Yes.
All of the, it's all right there, and it's all next to the Boys and Girls Club and next to the ice rink. I mean, it's a great, it's a great location for the students of the community, and you want to try to keep that.
Mhm.
Someday, you may not be able to.
Mm-hmm.
So, which brings us to our next
Diane,
request.
I've got just a couple
No,
quick
I think
comments.
that's good.
So between Planet listing this as the NHH field, track, and stadium,
Titling.
yeah, and then going to our summary sheet, it's evolved to the athletic complex master plan, which I have no issues with.
Can we change it to
Conceptually,
plan?
well, I actually would like to suggest, I mean, it sounds to me as though this is, it's not a full-on, there are other matters involved with the athletic complex master plan, and that is future use of the school buildings and so I would just suggest that you consider maybe titling that, and I don't know what, I'm not
It's
looking
like
to
the public
spend
schools
extra
master
money, but I just want to make sure that the title we use conveys accurately what needs to be done for the request, and then number two, that the request for funding amount parallels that accurately. So it sounds to me as if you may already be planning this into your 250, which would be great, but it does sound as if there is other facility planning in terms of the educational buildings that needs to be taken into consideration. So if athletic complex does not accurately convey what needs to be done, and then does the 250 accurately convey the amount of study work that needs to be done? That's my concerns with the topic.
Yeah, you might want to say NPS campus design,
For a master plan?
because
So-
that would,
Campus master plan.
yeah,
I mean, you guys come up, it's your request. I just want to make sure that we're properly encompassing the scope in both the title and the dollars, and then we can work on tracking it in our documents.
That's easy.
But if you would let us know on that. And then before
Can we
other,
email you all?
you can actually just email, I think, Rebecca, and then she'll update it. And then the other comment I wanted to make was, before we get too far ahead, with the building and grounds improvements, understand you're kind of rolling forward with a list, and some of those items are, or you have a list of items, and some of them are rolling forward from year to year with respect to prioritization and what dollars you have to spend. Our role is going to be, and we're doing this with other departments, what we want to do is we're going to want to get, during our capital project status report, which we'll have later this season, we'll want to get a FY18 update. What was that? So proposed versus completed, with a brief description of why. It's not a gotcha thing. It's just a keeping track for our own utility.
Yep, no
And
problem.
then we'll carry that forward when we do I know FY19 you're not gonna have a bunch of stuff done because you're putting stuff out to bid, and So
Library.
we'll roll it forward, but that's just something that we're gonna wanna do in our project.
So you want FY 18?
Yeah, just what,
And FY 19?
yeah, what was listed and what was done and what the discrepancy was. Not that discrepancy is a bad word, just tracking. Okay, thank you.
Anything else on that?
Something to the same theme. I'm just curious. You might know. You guys might have touched this. So are these duplicate right here? Backus Lane playground and field improvements, and then playground and field improvements phase 2 and 3.
No.
Those 2 line items. So those are
So we're gonna get, I think we're headed to that one next.
okay.
I think that's also a titling issue.
Okay.
Good question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm looking at what
I'm
the
not
same
sure
document
what
that
you're
you're
looking at
looking
either.
at, so.
In our planet
Oh,
form.
you have a different.
Is this
oh,
a different or an older one?
It is an older one.
I don't know. Okay, then yeah, I can follow up with that afterwards just to reconcile.
Do you want this? I have notes on it. Okay.
So for planning purposes, we should have a number somewhere in the 10-year horizon for a new building.
I did put it in the,
What
It's in
year
the
is
out
it?
years.
it's in, I think, what is it?
28 or 29?
27 or 28 or something?
Oh, no.
Oh,
I
okay.
have a question right next to that one too.
I just can't remember. I can go look or something.
Okay, it's not on
Phase
ours.
one.
Ours only goes to
This is phase
27.
3, and so we're duplicating.
Yeah.
So I'm just
I think you're
pointing out
right.
that it needs to be there.
Yep.
I think you're right.
You're right, and I did put it into Planet.
I
I
think you're
just,
right.
Oh, you know why? If you put it after 28, you printed 18 through 27,
That's
which is
probably
10 years,
why.
and
Okay.
it won't
Wow.
capture anything outside of that.
Okay.
okay.
Okay, so I want to
Do you
follow
want me
up.
to bring it back in so you can see it? Maybe it's
What's the number, just out of curiosity?
I can't remember, you told me, and I don't have it with me.
I mean,
I
it's
can look it up, because I have access to it.
gonna be more than the radios.
1,000 radios.
So
So just while we're
5,000
talking about paperwork here, I do want to follow up on Peter's comment because I have a question on it too.
Sounds like she said that her planet sheet was different than ours for some
Right,
reason,
but just to reconcile the 8, so we've got two numbers, NPS 18006 and NPS 19006. So those are just to put numbers to the question marks. They're both for 500. One is for playgrounds. One is Backus Lane playground and field improvements.
That was phase 1, maybe?
5.
Is that what you mean?
Well, it's an FY20 request, and then there's another one that's playground and field improvements phases 2 and 3, and that's also 5. So it looks like it's a duplicate because I don't have an additional set of supporting information for one of them.
Yeah,
Just-
it must
it-
be a duplicate.
it-
I don't have it on mine.
it looks like the same line item just got broken up into 2 line items.
I can fix it.
Yeah.
It's probably just, like I said, Planet's kind of a mess, but.
Right.
Yeah. So we're just pointing it out so we can get it to track.
No. Yeah, it's just double counting 500,000 for this year, which would
Yeah.
make the request look.
So our total would be
Better.
1.75 versus 2.25. I think that's literally the
Here's my
bottom
note,
line.
Richard. When you told me to put the new school in, we put it FY 29, I thought, which would have showed up on here, but.
And that's why it won't show up.
okay.
Right.
Thank you, Brian.
And what was the
Because
number?
you're only printing 10.
I think you told me 40 million, but you told me to put a
me.
placeholder in.
The Richard,
Placeholder.
the
Yeah,
Richard
we
H.
could put
Hussey
$1 in.
public school building. Yeah.
You told me
Yeah.
to.
you get a quarter board, Richard.
Yeah, you put your name on
It's
it?
gonna be more than 40 million, I bet you that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Brian, were you here
By the
for?
time-
Depends on how much you're putting into it.
Brian, were you here for when we were just talking about the athletic complex master plan?
It's in here for the last.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you're here so you knew that there might be a change in descriptor that's more than just having things track. It's actually a material concept. Okay, thank you. Please carry on.
So I'm gonna jump in. The last piece there is the NPS property acquisition. We've talked about this for several years, but we haven't actually been able to put that money in. But we want to continue to show that because we think that that would be a smart move by town and school. It will give the ability to pull the trigger if a parcel became open that is, contiguous with the present campus. I think I said last year, I don't think a school district is ever wise to try to go eminent domain. I think that just makes for bad neighbors.
Can't do that, yeah.
But I do think that you have a need to have the flexibility if it becomes, because if one of those properties sells and it sells because you didn't have the opportunity, it may not open again for 10 or 20 years. And I think it's a smart move if you can start building that. But I also realize that that's up against a lot of other capital requests.
Yeah,
So
this is not a, you're not gonna have any controversy with this. This is like the sidewalk fund. This is like the real estate account. This, as long as this gets put into an account that can't be taken, stolen from for something else, this is a no-brainer. I don't see anybody questioning this.
Well,
Should have already happened.
I just want to qualify.
No. I mean, people, I don't see people
Funding it?
opposing this because at
Putting
town
money
meeting.
in a fund with
Brian, can you come up?
No, I mean, what, okay.
No, I mean just because
Town can't write a check. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
problem
Oh, you
is
have
even,
to have it.
even having the money in the account, we still need to get authority to purchase. So,
Right.
which having money, and I'm not necessarily, we've had this discussion internally too, so I'm not saying that I don't support the idea, but we have to remember that I can't just go write a check for a house. We have
Yep.
procurement issues that we'd have to go through and
You do,
everything.
even when you,
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
So
Purchase
there-
or acquisition. So there are some hurdles, and we have internally talked about it. One of the concerns is, I mean, we have the reality is we do have a fund. Okay, the sale of real estate money can be used for any lawful purpose and allocated for by town meeting for any lawful purpose which you can borrow for more than 5 years. So that money that has money in it right now. So there is a fund that sits there that does have some. This, I mean, locking, I'm not necessarily saying we shouldn't do this because, again, we have had discussions about whether we want to have the flexibility. But without a clear plan, we are essentially just putting money somewhere with no ability, for potentially not using it for untold number of years, which right now.
Unless, and this is the thing that
then
There's
you,
you-
I know what you have to do then. You have to get the property owners to sign a P&S first option thing, whatever it is.
no, it takes
Something.
more. Okay, so
Well,
let's just-
whatever. I mean, you have to do something.
Again, it is something that the town manager, myself, the superintendent, the CFO, Diane, we've all had conversations about this, and it's something that's there. We just, because of the massive other infrastructure needs within the community, it's been something that's kind of just sat back a little bit on the back burner.
So what, in the end, in order for this to be successful, there needs to be a strategy that passes legal muster, that allows for, and I don't even know if it's possible, that allows for the money to be set aside in an account and a pre-authorization of some sort for purchasing, so that then you can get into the mechanisms of the PNSs and all the rest of that stuff that happen on a typical residential real estate timeline. But in order for this to be effective, there needs to be some type of a authorization from town meeting to spend some amount of money
Absolutely. That would be
on the
first step.
property, and it needs to be done in advance so that we can actually utilize the funds in a meaningful way, because otherwise it's not going to happen, because the real estate is going to come up for sale, and if we have to wait for town meeting, even a special town meeting, the amount of time that it would take in order to process that side of the transaction within the municipality far eclipses the timeline for the residential real estate. The other thing that could be considered is, and I'm just throwing this out there for the future, whomever discusses this, is to have authorization for an option on the real estate as part of the package, so that you would, the funds earmarked through the approval process, the pre-approval process, would include that an option could be purchased on neighboring real estate for some token amount, so that the school has some type of advance notice or right of first refusal, or there's a variety of different things you could accomplish with that. I'm not going to go
And
through.
there would be another way, if we move forward with this, absent setting money aside. I mean, we could simply do, like don't think we're gonna get into all the nitty-gritty details, but what we could do is we could simply get a borrowing authorization, which doesn't get used until it's actually needed,
Yeah.
versus setting aside
Yes.
money, but,
Which
you
makes
know,
more sense to me.
no, it does, but again, the other thing we'd have to do, we'd probably have to run that through a Moody's test to figure out what borrowing on it, because we have a lot of stuff we're financing in the next 5 to 10 years, and adding,
Well, that's what I was-
and I don't want to put another thing, anything
Our
that
bond
would
rating
potentially
commitment, you know.
do it, but it's an option, and it's just something that has been discussed a lot of times. So it's not something that just sits there, but it hasn't risen to, I guess, the emergent level, but it may be, given some of what coming out of the master plan from the school, there may be identifications of what should be, where should be considered.
I think that's going to be an important tool for you to use.
So can they, all right, so Brian, the wet blanket got thrown on this, so, but I think there's some hope. Okay, it sounds like it. But
Not
no,
a wet blanket, I'm just trying to explain
this is the problem.
how these things,
We
how they're
don't
done.
figure out how to do this. I'm telling you right now, and one of those properties gets sold. It's embarrassing. The reason we bought this is because they had the time to negotiate with the electric company. It was sort of like, it wasn't like I'm moving to Florida and I got to sell my house. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what's going to happen over there. You watch. Something like that is going to happen. So the land bank can write a check, the town can't. That's what I always say. How do we? I think your idea makes more sense now that I've heard it. It's not having to have a fund, but the authorization to borrow thing comes up. I get that. But how do we make that be like proactive? I still think we should get right first refusal from these people too. So there's sort of a something. That's a separate
That's
issue.
actually really going into deep mechanics.
Yeah.
Don't
Okay.
forget, the one thing that we have to do with an authorization to borrow, if we chose to do that route, is we would also have to have a number that we're authorized
We
to
have
borrow
to say
up to.
market value.
And, well,
appraisal,
I
something.
can't say that
You can't
in a
borrow.
borrow. I have to have an authorization to a number.
So,
Okay. It's
this-
so, I mean, it is a very good idea, I believe, regardless.
Well, at least
So
it's not a desirable
logistically-
But
area.
logistically, we have to kind of work internally to figure out how to move it forward in a way that makes sense. That's all. I'm not throwing the wet towel over it. I'm trying to say that logistically, there's avenues we have to navigate to make it work. That's all.
I'm sitting on my hands over here.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I appreciate, these are all good comments. I think what our takeaway is that, one, it's in the SIP as a request. Our concern as a request, if we felt that this was going to get a favorable recommendation, is what are the logistics? We look to you and you to work out the logistics and make a proposal so we can make a recommendation this year if it's going to happen this year.
I don't want to do something Brian says no to. I just want it to happen.
Let me
You know what I
finish,
mean?
please. I'm trying to make it, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
get to, is
Yeah.
we aren't gonna decide the mechanics here, but we need you all to make a concerted effort to put it on Brian's plate. It may be something that happens, I would just wanna say two things. One is it may be something that happens now and it changes after the master plan. But let's start to get that together so that there's some real I'm not suggesting there hasn't been real discussion, but there's some, okay, let's move the ball forward discussion. If there is agreement between town manager recommendation and finance department and the school on the topic, you guys put it together for us so we can make a recommendation. Knowing that as a result of the master plan, it may change a little bit. There may need more town meeting input or something along those lines, but we could at least have something on the books so that when the neighbor moves to Florida, like Nat says, we're ready to move on it within hopefully the next 18 months. So that's comment number one. Comment number two is I just want to, for people in TV land to be aware, my consideration for this is that it's prudent to be able to purchase at the market rate when the land becomes available and to have the mechanisms in place to do that. Part of that is because of the efficiency of utilizing staff on a single campus versus having to have perhaps 2 sets of staff or 2 sets of equipment or some order of nature of a hybrid of that if in fact we weren't able to purchase land that we're required for more school or more playing fields. So really what we're doing is by investing in the capital, we are also decreasing our potential operating expense. And I think that that's just an important consideration for people to be aware of. So on the topic of moving forward, are we good? Is that,
No,
is that,
completely agree with what you said.
okay. I just want to make sure we're
Yeah,
good with it.
no, I know this stuff is hard.
Yeah.
I know you just can't. As long as we can do it the crazy way and it comes out right, that's fine. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So,
I have one more thing.
Yes, please.
That we didn't have before. This sort of just came to light. We asked for 550.
Oh.
We asked for 550,000 last year to use the NIS funding for the renovation of the central office. And with that said, we moved forward. We got an architect. I actually printed these out
Thought we were
for
doing
you
that
all.
talking about the
If you want to see them or not.
Faculty building?
The old
Yeah.
teen center.
teen
that
center
is-
building, yeah.
Yeah, we'll accept that.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask. I mean, you
Yeah,
can
no, I
say
appreciate that you're
You can say no, but
Following
this just all came about.
the form.
So,
So I'd like to give this a little bit of some parameters. This is new to me too. Brian, have you reviewed as town manager, seen the update? Because this isn't a new request.
no.
To the
Supplement.
extent that we had the conversation about the original dollar value,
Yeah.
I know about this, and I had a very brief conversation with Diane, I think, last week about what some of the recommended additional changes were, but outside of that, I don't think I've had a long, in-depth conversation about any of the changes or anything.
Okay, so that's just for
Is
you,
that-
for the committee.
We have, no, I don't remember talking any more than seeing that the drawing that we had, right? Or that you-
And I left you a message asking
Oh,
about
yeah.
this, but,
Okay.
because this all just came to light.
It's fine, that's fine. So just for the committee purposes, so this is a request that hasn't been completely vetted, but we have school here, we want to hear the information. It's based upon a request that we have reviewed, just so we have context. And it's not to suggest that it won't go forward, I just want to
Thank you.
be clear on what we're looking at and, okay?
You approved, the 550, that we could use the 550 from the, original building appropriation. Then Libby sent out an email asking for construction costs, and at the same time, we sort of firmed up our plan. So our addition plan is approximately 2,200 square feet. When the construction costs all came to light, the least expensive construction costs are about $550 a square foot. And that goes for, NIS was $580, the Brant Point Hatchery was $554, and then the new fire station is $861. I didn't use $861 for my comparison because
Different
I
type
have
of
to be honest,
structure.
so much of that is FF&E and equipment that we would not have in this.
Yeah, yeah.
We will have bathrooms, we have to move a server room, so we'll have a lot of electrical, a lot of that sort of thing. This isn't just what we thought it was going to be when we started this process. So we, I sort of just did a really quick math. It would be about 1.2 instead of 550, so I put in a request for an additional 650. Again, this is really last minute and I apologize, but I didn't know what else to do with it.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we'll entertain initial discussion and then we'll put this on our outstanding items list for the November 1st or 2nd meeting. And we'll get additional backup if it's gonna move forward as for an FY20 with town manager recommendation. So that'll be we'll get more information to follow. But now we can do a preliminary and hopefully give this some shape if there's any questions. I have one just while we're waiting. I actually cannot, I can see the print, but it's so close together. As you come in the door, the bottom of the page,
Which door?
it's what is this space?
So this is north side.
Here. Oh, that's better.
Okay, so
Special
this is
services.
the original building. Okay, this
Yep.
is how it sits. This is the building.
This is first way? Or this is first way?
And First Way
This
is
way.
right here.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
So this is your
Your
primary
property
entrance
is over
here.
here, so we didn't wanna bump back to the fence.
And this is your primary
You're
entrance.
This will
going
be our
towards the
primary-
field.
Okay.
Right.
We're going
Yeah.
towards the field.
Yeah,
towards
the
towards
garden.
parking lot.
Yeah.
That's
And there is
movable.
another, you can have this, I
Other
can leave
ones-
this with you. There's also
is there
a really
space
kind
there?
of nice.
Yeah, it's just a hill,
Shows
but
it
it's
on
it's
the-
flat for a
There
little
you
while.
go, Peter. This shows it.
Oh
on the
yeah, right,
property.
right, right.
And that's just
there's their
so much
fence.
better.
Right, right.
And there's the garden.
To your question, so is this the main entrance here?
Yeah, and that's why I was just kind of curious of the layout.
How it
'cause
flows in.
Yeah, it didn't, this makes sense to me now that
Yeah.
I see it. This didn't.
Right. So
But that's not the main entrance. This is, you come in and then you
This is the
have,
main
yeah,
entrance area. Vestibule.
okay, that's helpful.
You can keep those. I mean, I have sets of them.
Now, have you
everywhere.
have you sent these to finance?
No.
Not yet, okay.
We
So
just-
what I'll do is I'll give you these back.
Okay.
And then we will get we will get these in our early November packet, along with any additional information that you could give us on cost breakdown. Michael?
I just was gonna give you context, we've got the special ed department over at the elementary school, we wanna bring them
Sure.
back into the central office. We've got the ELL director in a school, we wanna bring her back because we want to go to universal preschool at the elementary school.
And
4-year-old. So that's the reason for consolidating central at what we know as the teen center.
right, and to be clear, well, that's helpful information. It's not new information.
Right.
This is what the original proposal was based on and approved based on.
Yes.
We had some lengthy discussion about those topics and they were resolved. So I just want to be clear.
Yeah. Just
Richard, sorry.
What has changed in scope? Is the scope any bigger? Or the reality was,
The reality was that with ADA, with bathrooms, we had to make it larger, widening hallways, and we're taking the conference room. We have no conference room over at my office now,
You're answering too much.
and so we're taking the conference room, moving that over. So we ended up, with, I had hoped that we would do this for 1,500 square feet. At 2,200, it's just, grew.
No, it makes sense. So it's not the same project, Richard, right?
It was last year.
Yeah.
Peter?
No,
Good.
so this is obviously a different plan than last year's, than the original, right?
Yeah. This is,
Okay.
it's not like you put in for the same thing, it came out 650 more.
Right.
You putting in for
Right.
more,
More,
and
it
it's
came out
650
more.
more.
Right.
Yeah.
are we comfortable with the amount of money that we're suggesting is going to cost?
I based it on square footage costs, and it's not a complicated building. It does have plumbing because we're moving the bathrooms because you have to have ADA accessible. And it's on a
Oh,
slab.
okay.
We have to move the server room because where the server room sits right now is going to become a hallway. So that to me is complicated. Server room move is, I mean, I don't know if you know how our campus is set up. The fiber comes across sort of down the little dirt path by the grounds building. It comes out, it hits the central office, it goes across the parking lot to a handhole and goes to the elementary school. And that's how everything is fed. So
Hopefully underground.
yes, but moving that will be complicated. So I
Yeah.
went by the sort of averages around 550. I don't think it's as complicated as $861 a square foot
So-
as the fire station, but
Diane, I'm sorry, I don't have a visual on that. So are you saying that the fiber line wraps somehow the structure and it would impede construction and has to be moved? Or are you
It'll
saying
have
it
to be
need to be
moved.
extended?
it has to be extended because we have to move the entire server room. Because where it
Right.
dead ends right
Okay.
now is where there's gonna be a hallway.
So there'll be there'll be like a manhole extension versus have to dig up back to a different location and redo.
And
Okay.
the other part of this is the town expects us to tie into town sewer, because right now we're on septic. Yes, we are. I know, but we have a septic system.
No, that's crazy.
And
Forget that.
we'll have to tie into town sewer, and that, I actually spoke with Leo Asadorian yesterday, and he's,
Must have laughed.
no.
Well, I can't believe it. That it's in town, that's on the septic system over there.
It's not a septic system.
No, go ahead.
So, I had a preliminary plan to tie into town sewer from Leo, and he's since revised it based on this plan, so.
And your 650 increase includes
Includes that,
all
yes.
that work we talked about?
Yes.
Okay. Two questions for you. Are you going to be implementing like a central HVAC system, and what about audio video wiring for your conference room?
Okay, so, the HVAC system, we talked about, and they suggested that we, continue on what we have now, which is the split systems. We don't have central air in the central office. We have split systems in our rooms. So I know that that's an HDC thing.
I actually was more looking at it from the energy side, but yeah, the HDC thing. Sorry to interrupt, but so what I'm looking at is you're going to be doubling your load. You can obviously address that with mini splits. In the design, it would be beneficial. You're going to be making all kinds of changes to be centralizing those. They've got all kinds of new systems, variable. Well, we don't need to get into the mechanics of it, but basically what I'm trying to determine is not so much whether it's central HVAC as whether you are budgeting for
Yes.
changes to your heating and AC system and ventilation system. Okay, so that's because that could be an expensive cost. I wanted to make sure it was in there. And then audio video wiring for your conference room.
There's not a lot to it. We don't have.
No, I think we have the infrastructure to do that.
Okay, I think that what we would request is, I think I can speak for the town on this one, because we're running out of meeting spaces with changes here within this facility. One of the things we've been discussing and trying to put forth as a policy matter, at least anything that comes through Capcom, is expansion, renovations, where it's practical, audio video capability, so that if there's a spillover meeting, it's in the structure already. And it's not a dramatic cost, but it's just a matter, it's much more dramatic having to do it after the fact than up front. So those are the two comments I have. Anyone else?
No, just a couple tiny things to add on to everything else that's been said. So the slab on grade, you have to do mini splits, really. I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
And you definitely want to do the slab, you don't want a basement storage.
Well, typically that would be an attic space.
Yeah.
You can put your
No, I know,
up in
but
your
not
attic.
for the first floor though.
Yeah.
So, okay, so
Mini splits will be better.
here's the big question. Do you see this new plan, because it's better, fit in the master plan? And being like a permanent resting spot for this little setup? Because remember before, that wasn't really...
Right, we had talked about moving central office into one of the schools. And some of you will remember that my office used to be in the high school.
Yeah, yeah.
So we moved from the high school to the teen center, and we were going to go over to NES. And so
I remember Peter had all those questions.
Right, right.
I'm sure he'll have more of.
I know, he's going to have a lot of questions in November, so you better talk to him beforehand.
Yeah.
Because this is his thing. So I think it makes sense
Call me anytime.
because
That, Peter.
you're...
Oh, okay.
I think your track record, you're sort of, I don't want to say learning as you go, but yes, you are in a sense. You're being efficient, more efficient each time you change something. Or, you know what I mean? Like, I see this as it makes more sense now. More palatable than it was when it was 550.
As long as it all stays there.
As long as it stays
Well, that's
there.
the
5
point.
years,
You don't
it's
want
not
5 years,
something
You don't
else.
want to be
6 years,
moving this,
saying, okay,
tearing
now
it
we
down
need
and
to go
saying
here.
it's
Right.
reached the end of the radio
And the
life in
reason we're
10
pulling
years.
out
Hate
of the
that.
elementary school is because now they need more space for the preschools that they want to set up, so.
And not for nothing, I mean, we, the community, you all specifically, haven't done a master plan yet. So where do you, I would just want to have asked the question, you see this as being the place for these services, these types of functions, or similar for the next 15 or 20 years?
I do.
Okay. Makes it simple. Anyone else, thoughts, comments? we'll talk about this more in November.
I apologize for the late.
Yeah.
It's fine.
It's
Just
important to get the information up front. The other thing I want to talk about, and please reach out to, I'd suggest if you have not discussed with your liaisons this topic, to please reach out to them and schedule a meeting before November. Get any questions or potential flashpoints identified so we can efficiently address them here when we meet.
Can we make sure they get a copy of this also sent to them?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
To whoever.
can you send that, please? Well, liaisons they can communicate directly with, correct? There's no reason not
Oh
to.
yeah, one-on-one.
So you could just send it to the liaisons and mention it was brought up at the meeting, and we'll be revisiting it in November, early November, with additional details provided by you all. Okay. Then I think we're on to just general discussion of out years. So, I mean, clearly your master plan is going to be generating some potential out year topics, but those aren't before us today. You have put in some funding requests for the master plan, and I'd like to know more about that. I'd like to. We talked about the building and grounds improvement, and we'll be getting status. So you'll be providing a list with your FY current requests, and then during our capital project status reports, you'll be giving us a kind of an after action report. And then the other one is the land acquisition. You have funds for out years, which I was a little confused about, but it may just be, I'm looking at a summary sheet, not the planet. Yeah, but the property acquisition, okay, so the property acquisition is not the land bank land, that is the,
That's the
Revolving
500,000
fund.
a year.
The money.
The revolving.
The discussion with Brian, Steve.
oh, and then on our, so what is the, forgive me, because I'm trying to track two different sheets here. What is the land bank acquisition amount
No,
for the playground? I thought you said that.
Oh, that's the playground and
Legal
field
stuff.
improvements.
Yeah.
That 500,000 for FY '20 is our last request for that, because it was a
Phase
phase.
three.
And this is the third and final phase. If we get that money put in, we'll be able to build the playgrounds and the playing fields.
Oh, Bacchus Lane.
Got it, okay, just wanted to clarify.
it's like
Okay.
a placeholder.
So,
Sorry.
so tell us a little bit about what you're thinking with the 750 on the master plan for out years per year, and I think that would be it.
So Mr. Kozer wanted me to break it up into phases, because we'd like to build the synthetic football field and get it in place. So this was more of sort of a phased approach to asking for a $5 million capital request to do it all at once. I don't know if you prefer it that way or if you would prefer it this way. So that's what this sort of was. And it wasn't just that one field. It was once that 250, once that master plan is discussed and talked about, we'd like to start moving forward with building these things. So if we got the 750 in FY '21, and we got the 750 in FY '22, we could possibly start the football field move, or whatever the other move would be, and then we would continue on in '23 and '24 and do the next piece to it. So that was sort of the thought process behind why it's 750 across the board.
Okay.
Makes sense.
No, I think, you could look at it either way. You could go with a larger capital, or break it up into phases. And we just felt that, at this point, having it still on the cusp of the new school, it would be smarter to break it up into phases.
So we're basing, just informational, so we're basing the initial out year request, FY '21, on the synthetic football fields and related structures, and then we're carrying that forward in anticipation of what the master plan results are. So conceivably,
This
depending,
could change.
yeah, it could change
Based on the master
based on maybe the master plan for a number of reasons. For instance, we've identified some other type of capital infrastructure would be beneficial, and doing it at the same time as the synthetic fields, because there's utility and mobilization and so on and so forth. So this is a number that will change. So in a way, it's based on something, but it's also flexible in terms of in a sense, it's a placeholder. Okay, just so we,
Yep.
you know,
And we'll probably get more clarity after the master plan has been developed
yeah,
onto how long, what the time frame is, what the total amount will be.
yeah. And what is your timeline for that if this were approved? I'm kind of curious, how quickly will that be done? Not that
The
quicker is,
design part of it.
not that quicker is better in the sense of we don't want to rush it, but quicker is better in terms of planning. And when are you leaving, Michael?
Oh,
So it's going to be after you're gone.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just what are you thinking timeline for the master plan?
So if this was approved and put through, I can't do anything until next July 1st. I can't even start this process. I can't start the RFP process.
But I mean, internally, are you thinking this is something that we want to, I'm just curious, are you thinking it's something we want to get done
It's gonna take a year.
as soon as we get
Or 6
the
months
funding,
at
we're going to
least.
have an RFP ready to go, or is it
Mhm.
something?
I'll probably have it ready to go right after town meeting if it's approved.
Right.
So I'll put it out and say you can't start until July 1st. We've done that in the past. We can't sign the contract until July 1st. Pretty much.
So is it fair, just while we're on the topic, to characterize this is that this is really more, it's more of a facilities master plan in the context of what we discussed today? Okay. Just to give it a name. Okay. You guys, what are you thinking? Anything on the out years for that?
I mean, considering they're subject to change once the master plan's been reviewed,
Yeah.
there's not much that we can really
You know,
take from it. Just knowing that it will be there in some form.
there's
and amount.
something there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And phase 3, no out years, so Bacchus Lane is done as
Hopefully.
of,
As soon as we acquire that land.
that's the plan.
If it ever gets out of land court.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
Mike's retirement gift.
it's very slow.
That's
They
great.
still wear
Yeah,
wigs,
no
those
memorial
guys.
fields.
It's a terrible implication.
Yeah, I was just thinking.
No, you're leaving, this is good. I think this is a great, you guys have every right to change things a little bit. There's nothing wrong with that. This is all good stuff, I think.
Okay, good. Well, we'd like to thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
We appreciate the information. We'll look forward to the supplemental information in November, and we'll be in touch to schedule, which it'll likely be November 2nd. I think our November 1st is booked up with some other follow-ups.
So we'll get together with Richard and maybe Peter.
Yeah.
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 Get him
Peter,
doped out.
maybe Richard.
Well, we trust you guys will work out the details.
Thank
Give
you.
them the information they need so they're up to speed. Is really what we're looking
Yeah.
for.
And thank you for
Thank
letting
you.
me submit
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks
Thanks,
for
guys.
coming in. All right, guys, so we're going to move on to just general discussion and maybe get these rankings relative importance addressed. I know we're kind of behind with some of them, so I think we have enough information. Well, we can discuss them as we go. Any general thoughts before we get into the ranking of relative importance?
Interesting. The Rory form didn't have the duplicate for
Yeah,
the, you know.
and thank you
notice
for
that.
putting the dollar amounts in,
You're
too.
welcome.
Oh, yeah.
And I can also
Awesome.
add, if you want their new request and either resend it to you guys, or if you wanna wait and rank that after the November.
Wait till after the.
Yeah, we're going to rank that in November, I think.
I have a note to add it for November, but, okay.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll add the today's table submitted request to the Rory for November, just for the minutes. So you guys just you want to just go through and do start with the Rory? See if there's any questions as we go. Okay.
My favorite stuff. Change your
And Rebecca, you are entering for the continuity A group, high, medium, and lows. If it's a 50% high, it's 100% in the lower categories.
So,
Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I think we're going to continue to do that for now. And then when we do the Rory input form, we're going to, phase 2, we're going to actually split out, because there's another complication. It's also not only are we using those fields for high, medium, and low, we're also using required, recommended, and elective. So we're gonna split those up. But for now, we're just gonna go with the higher one, whatever the value is, triggers the lower ones at 100% per.
At 100% or 50? Because we did 100% in our manual.
At 100%, so
if we put at the high one,
50.
If we put it at 100, then all three in continuity A were 100.
Okay, and
so
I agree.
if ops high prevents degradation was 100,
Right.
medium and low were automatically 100.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and what I'm saying is that if ops high prevents degradation required is 50%, recommended and elective are both 100%.
Okay, so we haven't been doing it by this.
Well, we can fix that. very
Yeah,
quickly.
just so we're just again to bring it up.
So,
That won't be a material change to our recs anyway.
no, it won't, but I'm just trying to think, because I've gone in and put in some of these, based on Capcom's ranking so far, so if for any number in ops high, then
Yeah.
the other two automatically kick in at 100 regardless, is that the idea?
Yeah, if it's a 1 in ops high, literally a 1%,
Yep.
anything below it, if it's required, then it's also recommended and elective 100%.
Okay, so I'll just make sure that I go in and update that,
And
Well, what if
Okay,
you make
and then-
that,
And then similarly, if it's recommended 50%, it's automatically 100% value of the elective. It's just the way we set this up, because we didn't set it up based on that. We set it up based on, when we did the analytical hierarchy processing and the algorithm, we set it up based on prevents degradation, preserves necessary function, enhances though not required.
so then would, this is for discussion.
Yeah.
If you had a scenario where you put 40% ops high prevents degradation, are you suggesting that you put 40 in medium and low, or 100 in medium and low?
I'm not suggesting we're gonna do 100 in medium and low.
Okay,
So that,
okay.
and then that's just,
So if you put anything in ops high,
right.
medium and low become 100% by
Yes.
default.
And there's another category like that. And the reason we're doing that is, it makes the most sense, and we also did it last season that way, so that we're having
Yeah,
continuity
yeah,
from
it's
one
just
to the
yeah,
next.
that's-
Yeah. And then we'll separate it out when we review the, because we're gonna add some other fields.
Sorry, Stephen, so
Yeah.
just to clarify, so then you said that the same holds true for ops medium, if you
Yes,
rank any number from 1 to 100 in there, then ops low automatically also kicks in at 100.
yes.
Okay.
And then for the same reason, and maybe even a better example, is under the cost group, major improvement, efficiency and effectiveness, minor improvement, efficiency, effectiveness. So it's a major improvement and it's a 10%,
It's 100%
minor is
minor.
100%.
Okay, so what was it?
If it's major and it's 1%,
Yeah.
minor is 100%.
Okay.
Does that? Okay. Just for you guys, when you're filling out the form, basically for the first three, if you put something in the upper field for high, put 100 in the next one, and if you don't, Rebecca will pick it up, and then the same under cost for major and minor improvement. All right.
Should we retroactively for this year make sure that all of them have been done
Yeah,
as
I'll do
such?
that. I've been doing it with ops high, but not
Major, minor.
major minor.
Okay.
And then we'll have some changes to make it.
Because obviously it'll affect our summary or our total RORI, aggregate RORI if people are doing it differently.
Yeah, and I think, well, correct, and you're 100%
Yeah.
right in pointing, like we got.
Which is why I've been trying to get it consistent, bring it up
Yeah.
because it.
Well, and I think what we're gonna do, just as a matter of, just to give it some direction, is we have, where are we with transportation? Probably, has anyone submitted their RORI for transportation?
Yes, I got them from you, Peter, Jason,
I didn't do anything.
Richard, you sent me yours, and
So mine's tardy,
that's okay.
and then I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna ask for next week, a list of who hasn't turned in what, so that members are aware.
Yep.
Not to get them by the short hairs yet, we got a little bit of time, But then before our, say somewhere like our third week in October, we'll have all the sheets in that we can, and then we'll send out the revised and updated so that everything is properly recorded in the subsets. And then we all have a chance to review it before our November meeting when we're going to be finalizing outstanding items. Just get it out of the way.
Yeah.
But we got a little bit of time to do it.
And I'm assuming you're gonna wait to rank, like DPW facilities, for example, until after those November meetings when,
Yes.
okay.
So we'll, so just again for the minutes, just if you can hear, so we'll rank the DPW's, anything outstanding and DPW as a whole and sewer, or solid waste at, when we address them
You
in
guys
the
rank solid
November
waste?
meeting. Did we do solid waste? There was something, oh, we didn't do the cap. That was coming back for
Yeah,
additional
there's-
information.
Yeah. Maybe
Okay.
one, but everything else I think have numbers in.
All right, that's all I gotta say.
Can I just ask a question about?
Please.
I know it's not. I'm not sure exactly if it's the right thing, but on this land acquisition discussion that we just had, so I've sort of separated that in my mind from everything else. The school.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna be meeting again. Maybe they have a better, with Brian, a better
Process.
plan, because I mean, this is meddling. And, you know, I know what I want to happen. I think we all want the same thing, but when we start talking, it's like the steamship stuff. You can't fix everything to be what you think sometimes. So I don't want to even rank this.
Well,
In the sense, it's high, to me, it's 100, but it's not, the process might not be what they're saying. That's what I'm saying.
I think what I would suggest is,
That's a continued.
your point about meddling is, I think, well taken.
Meddling, like telling someone what to do when they're professional at this stuff. Like, you can't do what we want. What's the point of
I understand.
doing it, as long as we're headed in that direction?
I understand, but how we head in that direction is we have discussions on the, you know, the school admin and the town manager and finance have the policy discussions. It has been brought forth and it hasn't been asked to been held back. So I think it's worthwhile to put put down what you believe as a citizen of the community, where it fits into these different categories, and, you know, rank it. It's, you know, no one's gonna single you out for it. It's important to have the information. It's on our list, it's part of the SIP, so it's one of our duties. I get what you're saying that, but I think
I don't like to
we're
be-
not gonna undermine the process one way or the other
Yeah.
by ranking it,
All right.
is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I get your point about meddling, it's a good one, but by doing this, we're not gonna be meddling.
Brian, how many properties we talking about? 10, 11,
No, less.
less?
The schools?
Yeah.
Here, here.
Oh, you mean that are
Yeah.
possibly
Possibly.
possible.
Five, maybe?
Yeah.
Oh, it's 5.
You're talking about building improvements.
I think it's about 5.
I mean,
I mean,
when the market drops, the prudent thing would
Yeah.
be, if we were gonna buy those as a
Love that.
community, the prudent thing would be when the market drops to a historical low, is to give those people reverse mortgages if they're interested in selling, or something along those lines. I know that's a little flippant, but
Creative.
we don't wanna be, as a community, buying real estate at the peak.
We just want to build everything at the peak.
Yeah, we just wanna build it at the peak.
Already on the land.
that's a good one. I like that.
It kills me. It's like my blood gets sucked out thinking about it.
Buy high, sell low.
Nat, if you have any questions, don't be shy.
No, I'm gonna talk to Rebecca about it already. That's good.
Pardon me? No, I can't make the,
It's 1 at 4.
I can't make either of
Can't
those.
make it.
And, can't do, yeah, not today.
Just ask him.
Sorry.
No?
It's gonna be a little quieter though.
Yeah, but never mind. It's fine.
We can chat after. Okay. Nat, you're gonna follow up with Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And, anyone else done? Thank you.
Yeah, missed all zeros.
Yeah, I don't know. You're supposed to fit every one?
Yeah.
I thought you said it goes through.
So these ones, only
This is
these ones.
0 to me. This isn't scheduled in. This is just,
Yeah.
I gave mine to Peter.
Like, oh, here you go.
we're not replacing.
Thank you.
We can,
Yeah, yeah.
this is part of
This
an
one, we gotta
improvement.
replace some stuff, right?
This is-
Scheduled replacement.
This is, I already wrote
This
that.
is, yeah, what about this?
So,
Scheduled replacements. Kinda, windows, concrete, you know.
Yeah, 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 no, that's true, you're right,
I mean, it
right.
can be 30, 15, 60. So these ones will automatically fill down as
Right,
100.
that's what I was
That one
talking
will be a
about.
0, those ones will be hundreds.
This is not, yeah, I
Yeah.
would say that's a 0
Right.
there,
So like, what's the scheduled replacement? So that'd be a 0 there.
0.
So like reduce
The
the company.
energy consumption has nothing to do with this, a little bit here.
A little bit here.
A little bit.
You know, windows, shingles.
They need to put big screens on those things. Good job.
But,
Have me here.
so these all fill in as 100 also.
Yeah, yeah,
Because these are linked.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
that's what I left it.
So they'll. And then.
And I think this is pretty solid.
So you think like technically are the fields, like is the whole
It's an
campus?
infrastructure and a strategic
So like
plan.
is the whole campus overburdened, you know, right now? Does it kind of, I'll usually put like a 10 or 25% to give it something, you know, because like at the end of the day it'll help relieve it a little bit. Same thing with this,
Yeah.
field will open up a little bit. You know, this I'm like, alright, if they have to use their cell phones right now.
I got that one,
Oh,
right?
okay.
That one fits that, I already did those.
Overstressed and burdened.
I look at this as different than,
Yeah, same.
I
Oh, yeah.
mean,
I look
it's
at these
not
two
the same
together.
stuff.
This one's kind of linked
this
to
is,
these.
this is, to me,
This and
is,
this are kind of standalone.
and this here is,
Strategic plan.
yeah,
Right.
that's all that is.
Well, and funny because like strategic plan, we talking like the Board of Selectmen's strategic plan, or like what you think
That's
the town's
actually-
strategic plan should
I-
be.
it's
that.
pretty broad.
Yeah,
Sort
it's
of
kind of
just a
like
term.
Is it a department?
if I was
Sort of
running,
like
if
strategic
I'm running
plan.
the
Sort of
town,
like
like what would
algorithm.
my strategic plan be?
Sort of
Like,
like an algorithm.
it's kind of like legacy, heritage. Yeah, that one too. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, well, it makes sense to keep the school safe. Like that should
Right.
be part of the town's legacy.
Well-
Maybe 25%.
Ultimately, right, so the idea is that we're promoting, if it's a strategic, if it is a strategic plan, it's getting points, and we're promoting the concept that department level strategic plans are in place, that meld with the town manager's strategic plan, that meld with the master plan. So that was, right now, it's,
I think that and the legacy heritage culture kind of have a little bit of our own.
Yeah.
What do we think those mean?
Yeah.
And then we base it off of that, you know. So I think there can be discrepancies, but as a whole,
Yes.
and
I think they all.
yeah, and I think one of the
Even
things
out.
we're gonna do when we do the Rory Phase 2, which will be a involve a re-ranking,
Right.
is we'll break down the strategic category to include department level plan, master plan. You know, we can put other categories in
Right.
there so that they're ranked, so that they develop a value of their own. Like, to me, a department, the most important thing in a way is the department has a plan.
Right,
Tough
that's
because we
how I
don't
see
know
it.
the ins and outs of every individual department's strategic plan.
Right, but we can,
know.
but
But
then
when
it's
they
on our
said
list so we
master
can
plan,
add.
it's
to-
just a different word.
If
I
it's
see
in
it
here,
all the same with them.
if it's on the Rory, it'll be in the SIP request form.
Yeah.
And then that translates through, and it becomes a discussion point if we want it to be, but we can review it in advance, so if we get a request in our packet, and we're like, well, there's no department maintenance plan. Why is that? Like, all these don't have it, so it brings up that discussion, and then hopefully we can facilitate changing the culture a little bit. That's what I was thinking anyways.
Check and balance.
Checks and balance, thank you, Peter. Any thoughts on any committee reports? Thoughts on what we're doing, good, bad, ugly? Give it to me. This is the time to course correct.
I
if
think
there's
the
any
meeting at
concerns.
Toronto was good. I think the format over there was good.
Yeah,
A little
First
tight,
time.
spatially.
Little tight,
A little tight.
yeah.
but it fits into this discussion. We had that discussion with my first, thanks a lot, get me involved. Actually, it's good.
I think, I thought you were.
It's
you
good,
were-
because I know
Senior-
all those people. It's
senior
kind of
facility.
okay.
Yeah, the senior center.
Kind of
Senior
just be there to just, they know what they're talking about, they know what they want, but there's the land stuff and the uses is what we're,
I anticipated
concerned
you would
with.
bring that balance
yes,
to the group.
it's good.
Good.
But it came up, meeting space. Libby's right, we have to, every single thing that gets built brand new with taxpayer money here has to have the discussion about that, or in storage. Stuff like record storage, those kind, that you don't hear about that stuff, but
Yeah.
it's really, that's another issue. So when they said slab on grade, all those questions went off my list. There's a reason they're doing that.
Yeah.
There's no point even
Yeah.
bringing it up.
But
you know what
but
I'm
to be
saying?
clear, that's part of our role, is for each of us to remember, so that if someone forgets, is to ask those questions. So if they're not putting them in their plans, until it does become part of the culture of the department heads who are doing facilities expansions, that we're asking about audio, video, we're
Yeah,
asking
have to.
about records retention and all the rest of that stuff.
Yep. I mean, sitting down at the selectmen's room is like bringing back 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's kind of
Committees I was on, sitting down there, it's like, it hasn't changed. It still has the same smell,
Where's that?
the same
It's
broken
still
lights,
the same
same,
smell.
everything's exactly the same.